I guess.
So in our case, our daughter is 4 years old,
Mhm.
Yep.
and so easily 4 years there.
Okay.
We had known each other for maybe 7 years before that, so we were at least in a relationship of some sort. But you know, things go the way they go. Right. So about 4 years that we've been that I've been a dad, and we've been in this type of arrangement.
So you didn't really do any joint parenting. It's kind of all both separate. Right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's been an evolution, I would say, an evolution, of course, in life. And, we were originally, our daughter was born in San Diego, lovely La Jolla, San Diego.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
circumstances, we moved, let's see, they moved about 3 years, and then I moved a year later. So there was a little staggered move there. and
Okay.
um and so the dynamics of sharing with our daughter kind of evolved to meet those circumstances. So for example, when she was like 0 through 6 months, it was me taking her to Oceanside Pier, going for day walks, just a few hours, because they're nursing, and they need their mom like a lot of the time. And so, just spending that nature of time visiting, being involved, right? Like just getting that, whether it's skin time or changing diapers.
Sure.
I've learned that that's very important for their development. So, but now we have about almost an equal time share. There's a little, mom has a little more time, but that's okay. But I have a good significant amount of time, and that's consistent and important. Yeah.
Well, so whose decision was it to live separately and not as a
Mhm.
married couple?
Well, I think each, right, in our case, it just was a natural progression of how things go. You might, we maybe had some discussions, um, but I think in the end, looking in hindsight, and something that I would take away is just the importance of each person going to some kind of therapy or counseling for themselves, and just really digging deep there. That's been the biggest, help, if you will, right? Because you can often meet family and friends, and your inclination is to share what you're going through. And it maybe in some cases you do, it's your family, depending on how close your proximity and, your intimacy family factor is. But with friends, it can often come across as gossip, or friends might
Mhm.
be a little more biased, and and so often just describing your situation in front of a trained clinician, a licensed professional, I think is something I would recommend for both people, before marrying. I see that, and I see it now. I see the role of that, and how important that is, that getting that therapy counseling before you get married. If you can abstain from having sex, that would be good too. I know that's a little difficult, and maybe unrealistic to a lot of viewers, I don't know, but importance of it, I
Yeah.
can see the importance of it now. And getting both people mentally and emotionally up to a certain level before taking that plunge. Now I'd pay a lot more attention in that.
So, did you visit the counselor before you engaged with your girlfriend, or
Hmm.
yeah?
Yeah, no, no,
No, you
no. I
didn't.
didn't. I
Okay.
didn't take that advice. I didn't have that advice. Yeah, we're just figuring it out, and these you go through those emotions. For example, when things don't go right in a relationship, our inclination, well, maybe I should try harder, right? That type of stuff. That natural relationship
Mhm.
evolution that you think is like you're doing something, but you might not be. You might be working unknowingly against yourself. And the reality is, both people have things they need to work on to some degree. And it might get lost in a lot of drama. So just seeing someone professionally, I think is a good investment in your mental stability and clarity, and it can help. I wouldn't recommend that enough. To when I see new young couples, I'm just like beaming with joy. I'm like, man, good luck. And the best thing I can offer is both of you get grounded in seeing someone and hopefully having a life situation that encourages you towards like God and the
So
role
can I
of
ask you? Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I'm going to just kind of cut to the chase here. So the
Sure.
topic here is how to raise a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I'm 61. I got 2 adopted daughters from my first marriage, which I was pretty much out of their lives about 6 to 8 years old and haven't seen them because of the nastiness. Then I got 2 stepdaughters in my second marriage, but that didn't end well either. But I kind of raised them from that 6 to 8 years old up until 16, 18 years old. So I've experience with daughters. So, but you and I are going to have differences of opinion, and I'm going to challenge you. I'm not, you know what? But first of all, I recognize it's your right to raise your child the way you want. But if I don't challenge, well, we all learn from being challenged. So I'm going to challenge your worldview, and but I'm going to keep it friendly. So I hope you'll accept that in that way. So before we get into that, what is the purpose of a woman, or what do you want to raise your daughter to be as a person in a relationship? What's your goal? Is that fair question?
Yeah, absolutely. Fair question. So in my case, let's go back to conception, right? Each person
Okay.
is kind of is hot and steamy or whatever it is for each person. I'll go back to that moment that for a guy, busting a nut, right? That moment. I remember that moment distinctly. And I remember because right, we didn't have protection, if you will, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
I remember it was going through my mind. A big fear was going through my mind because through childhood, I'd been learned that that it's difficult, and it has been right. But kids are hard, and they're just that fear of not knowing, right? Not knowing. But I had a real deep love, though. I was like, this kind of I thought it was beautiful in my case, right? And so, okay, that moment, move forward, all the things happening, here and now. You mentioned things weren't always pretty, right? And things haven't been in my case as well. And I could, that we could go on about that, but it's been a challenge, an expensive, emotionally challenged, challenge to get to where I am now with time, and she's playing right here. So,
Sure.
so let me see. I'm going to make sure I hit your
So
question
what
at
do you want
least.
her to
Yeah,
be? Okay.
yeah.
18 years old, 20 years old, 24. What do you want her life to be?
Yeah. So throughout this process, so I've always felt love and deep commitment. I've learned that the role of fathers is immensely important. 0 through 5.
Right.
Right. The stats clearly show that daughters with their dads engaged in a positive way are more successful, more emotionally stable, just better off. And each dad has their own choice when they raise a child. But for me, I resonate my emotions well up when I think of dropping that ball. So I don't want to drop that ball. I want to be present. I know that like I love this little child here, that those drive my actions. I want her to be smart, want her to be independent, but not right? There's polarities, but there's extremes too. So, right, I've heard some women TikTok and online streams, they take
Mhm.
independent and they just run with that independence. Like, wait, there's some balance, there's some balance. So, the thing is, I can sit here and like mouth what I hope she becomes and what I hope to instill in her. My actions are that though, and they learn from your actions. So it's like no matter what I say and mouth right here, it's just going to be like, what am I really demonstrating to her? And so if I kind of shift your question of what do I want her to be, because the stats clearly show that just my presence and right is going to like tick her up a little bit, and that speaks for itself. So my actions though are moving from San Diego, challenging to, restart a career here in North Carolina.
Okay.
And be involved. She has a school event today, actually. A school that she goes to has a May event, and it's actually my birthday today. May 4th, May the
Oh,
4th.
Oh,
great.
happy
Yeah, a
birthday.
little,
Mhm.
it's all good. But I've always measured birthdays by this one measure, which is not what gifts I'm receiving, right? Because that may fluctuate. But sorry if I get a little emotional. But it's just like on that day, are you working on something that that you want to see manifest? Like, are you where you want to be? Are you working? And so, sorry if I get emotional. I'm working on
Well,
things
I
I want to
sense
do, and
something. I
and
sense
she's
something
right
here. So
here.
I'm gonna throw out something here.
Yeah,
Most
yeah. So,
people,
mhm,
most people think men and women are equal. That's what we're taught to believe.
right.
I absolutely do not think men and women are equal. And okay, so let me define. Equal means interchangeable. They are not. And you mentioned your fathers are important. Uh, and I'm going to throw out generalizations
Mhm.
because they're efficient. There are exceptions. Men make decisions using facts and logic, and they think their way through it. And it, as a programmer, you have to be logical. You have to think your way through it step by step by step. Women, on the other hand, a lot of times make up their decisions based on feelings. So you have this difference. But I believe that's how God created us. And uh, so they're not equal. That doesn't mean women are lesser in the eyes of God than men. They have different roles. And then you have authority and responsibility. And I've learned the hard way. Women like to take authority, but they really don't want to take responsibility. Now, again, this is a generalization. So you have to kind of link this authority and responsibility. And some of these concepts have to be in the back of your mind as you're raising your child.
So when you mention those dynamics of authority and accountability, are you referring to the partner in which the dynamic, the child or the daughters themselves, and kind of watching that as they grow and
Well,
supporting that so it's healthy, so it's not like the partners we often may run it. Just curious, like because I
yeah,
actually never made that shift yet, like
okay.
that
Well,
accountability and just I mean, we work on it in all kinds of activities, but just to make sure, are you talking about with
okay.
the partners?
I'm not talking about instilling that in her.
Hmm.
It's in you, and she will observe that.
Mm.
Her her concept of God, her concept of trust in a man. Is he a good man? How to evaluate a good man, a good husband. You're the role model. So if you understand this authority and responsibility, and in a lot of marriages, the woman rules the roost, and she wants to be boss in the home, but he's still earning the money. And she's not providing sex, she's telling him what to do here and there and who his friends can be, but the money, oh, that's an entitlement that just comes in. And then when she leaves, well, she'll make some accusations or whatever, and he has to provide child support. That's responsibility. But now she is the dominant force in choosing how the daughter is raised. And you had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to get your parental rights.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she had the accountability. And the money situation isn't that important as to where it comes from. But these two ideas, I think men understand that they're linked. And a lot of times women don't understand they're linked. And I don't know that it's an overt teaching, but women who are raised with their father around understand this. And in order to not raise an entitled princess, the most important thing you can do for your daughter is put up boundaries and use the word no. You can't do that. And women don't like that, but they need experience understanding that no, there's boundaries. No, I'm the authority. I'm making the decision. And then it's not a punishment. It's not a nasty thing. And if they disappoint you, you still love them. The love is never in question. It's not you're just a nasty guy who's always saying no. It's just, no, you're not going to do that. I'm the authority. And I love you even when you mess up.
Can I jump in real quick here? I'm not going to try to dominate our conversation.
Sure, go ahead,
or
Nick.
team up on. Don't want to make Lydell feel like I'm teaming up on him. But he mentioned partner, right? And what's the first thing you do in a partnership? You make the terms of dissolving that the first things that are clear, right? So the idea of a partnership, in my understanding, the idea of partnership, A, is it's false equalism, and B, it's designed to fail. So I don't think we shouldn't talk about marriage or being with somebody as a partner or a partnership, because the man is automatically saying he's lesser than he ought to be, and it's already doomed to fail. It's just, what's the exact terms of failing? I'm done. Sure.
Yeah,
we're just pushing back on the worldview and giving you something else to think about. And
yeah, absolutely.
We can't beat you up because some of the things we're bringing up today are probably things you never thought of.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's the great thing about this discussion, giving you things to think about, because ultimately the decision is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's interesting. One thing I learned about is something called schema, right? And it's the words. If someone says a word, the schema, I believe it's spelled. You know what? I have a few different spelling ideas, but maybe SCHEMA schema. Maybe a little different, schemata, something like that. But it's the right, when someone says a word like partnership, certain words and associations that automatically happen in your brain. And so with my upbringing, my whole life path, right, I have a conception of a partnership that if we all had an activity, Elena gave us an activity and said, hey, everyone, I have the word partnership, write all the different associations you have for partnership on a piece of paper, right? Nick, if your label says Christianity Unplugged. So after, and Steve, you guys would all both write certain connotations, certain associations, and so what I've learned the most is actually right now, my mind like blown moment is actually that, wow, actually we all don't have the same idea of what a partner, when we think of to ourselves what a partnership meaning, let me go for a minute. It's a constructive relationship, a constructive, positive, building relationship between two people that have, both mutual interest. It's in my mind. When I say schemata, we're taking words that have associations. Marriage would also have an association with a partnership too. Why? Because they both have in similarity. Understanding there's so many differences. I do get it, right? But let's talk about commonalities, because that's how you join ideas versus create conflict, right? Look at things that are in common with someone. So marriage and partnership are both very closely equal in my in my mind view, my worldview. And so what I'm actually learning, and it's not brand new, but that people have viewed marriages different from partnerships. Even in California legislation, right, the domestic partnership and the rights of gays to marry. But people, again, they're like, no, you can't call it marriage. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's almost like in a way, and I don't mean to insult anyone, but like, when kids are growing up and I'm observing, there might be I'm trying to think of that as this example, but there are general concepts like tree or bird versus specifics like crow or, right. And when you're growing up, some people can get hung up on those, like that words are not exactly what they, and so some people have that and others don't. And I see,
you've pointed out a big problem in our world today. Everybody's making up their own definitions according to their feelings. This is what I feel means. No, and so when you talk to somebody and you use words, they have a mental concept and you have a mental concept, but both of you can't be right. No, there's no your truth and my truth. There is an accepted definition, and you got to use the accepted definition because otherwise you can't communicate. Now, if you use the accepted definition and your view doesn't agree with that definition, then you got to explain and move on and use a different word. You can't use this word with this definition and have it mean something else.
So you're that type that I am familiar with and aware of, and it's okay. And I understand your worldview, and I'm at peace with it, non-reactive to it. Right. Like I said, there are people who are like, hey, those words are, but let me share where, again, I'm comfortable where you are. I'm familiar with,
we're friends.
Right?
We're friendly here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not attacking you.
I feel very, I don't feel ganged up on, just for the record, right? I just feel like an awesome conversation, and I actually feel that I have a lot in common with you, Steve. In my mind perception, when I hear the drama that you went through, the role of the man in the command of the household, those are I'm in alignment with that now. Right now, right? let me give you a fact that I've learned, and it's kind of interesting because it's like, well, why doesn't our judicial system follow this, right? If you have equal households with like men and women, like single on both sides, you take single dads and single moms, single dads, the success rate of their children compared to single moms is just, we do better with our kids, even as single dads. It's statistics like shown clearly, clinical I don't know if it's a clinical trial, but right, the studies show that single dads, all being equal, like will be, better outcome. Now there, and then some people are like, well, what about like single dads versus married? It gets a little fuzzy, and then the noise, which is an interesting concept I've learned, and it echoes with what you said, is dads have to be there. They do have to be kind of in control of their household, and that sitcom mom that's like beating the dad over the head and saying these slapstick remarks, that was toxic. That was a whole generation of toxic characters that have been fed to us. And maybe you're right, there's a marriage definition versus a partnership, but in my mind, what they do have in common is that they're both legally binding documents, right? I have to go to a lawyer. I have to go through, some government entity to have them. Now, one may have definitively, though, factually, one may be different, and you may be right? But where I first broke down the idea of marriage versus partnership is when we were cohabitating early on, earlier on. There was a time in which I was gainfully employed and, eligible for benefits. But at the time, California law views, and I considered, we're like a partnership, we're living together. We're not married yet. but we're like working towards it, and we're, you know, learning dynamics, and, you know, may not the therapy part, but just figuring it out like a lot of people do. Right. And so it's like, man, is there an option for me in our relationship where we're cohabitating, we're supporting each other in our endeavors? Right. Is there and there's a domestic partnership versus marriage, and, you know, and it was just hard. It was like, man, can the domestic partnership be the same as marriage? That would be, you know, and it couldn't. They were different definitions, to your point, at that time. And so I'd actually probably learn a lot more from you. You know, I just have all these wild ideas, and she's still 4.
Okay.
So I know I'm not right. So
that's
my
fine.
hat's off, right? You
know, we're throwing things at you. We're
Yep.
challenging you to think. And that, you know what? That's a great thing, to challenge a man to think. Because now he can look at things from a different standpoint and challenge his views and hone his beliefs. And, you know, a good friend will challenge me.
That's right. That's right. They will. They will, especially if it's a healthy challenge, right? You can sniff out the healthy ones.
So let me ask you this. Other than the sexual realm or marriage or a woman,
yeah,
where else in your life do you see a partnership?
Let's see. Okay, so first let's there's partnership in work, and there's partnership in home. And when I say in work,
let's go into that partnership in work.
But you know, you should really, I'm learning they're all kind of the same partnerships. They should have that same good quality dynamic. But
do you have a partnership at work?
Well, I have a business partnership of one person. So right now, you know, legally speaking, I have an operating agreement with one person, me. So no, I'm single in the business side.
Okay.
And I'm also single in the dad side. No partnership.
You know, that's a good example. But let's go to the typical example where someone is employed in a company, corporation. They have a job. Mm-hmm. They're not independent contractors.
Right.
So you're in that job. Mm-hmm. You're hired to do a specific thing, and you report to your supervisor, manager. Now, is he better than you? Not better person. Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But he's in a position of authority, and he has responsibility, and you report to him. He says, you need to do this. This is your task. Go do it. Are you going to come on and say, well, you know, I have some other ideas of how we should do this. I think we should approach it differently. Well, no. And usually you don't quibble about it. Oh, okay. Yeah. He's giving me direction. He's calling the shots. He's guiding a whole bunch of other people. He's got the headaches and the responsibility. And if shit hits the fan and goes wrong, you know what? He's a guy that's accountable. And so, okay, yeah, I'll do my job, and you're compensating me. And yeah, we're going to get along, or maybe sometimes you don't. And then you have coworkers too, but that's more of an equal relationship. So decisions are made in the workforce primarily because someone has authority and responsibility over somebody else. And our military is set up that way with, you have officers and enlisted, and then you have actually non-commissioned officers and enlisted. There's always a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. When decisions are made, the person lower, they don't get to make that final decision. And people just kind of relax most of the time and understand, oh, okay, well, this is the way it works. In marriage, the problem is, or male-female partnerships, you end up with button heads about who's going to make this decision, who gets veto power, who's going to decide where we go on vacation. When there's a disagreement, you know, you discuss things, there's back and forth. And I'm not talking like a dictator here. But
Well,
there's an essence of a hierarchy.
there is, and I think there should be in a healthy relationship, because if we talk about even business partnerships, when there is a 50-50 split, you will see that the co-owners are always arguing and disagreeing because of the power dynamics, and whose word is more important than,
Elena, who's
You're
your
right
boss?
about that.
well, in my marriage, my husband is my boss, You know that, right?
I know that.
Yeah.
So,
Coming back to the question, what do you want your daughter to be? Do you want her to be married, but in what kind of scenario?
obviously, I'd first say I want her to be what she wants for herself, right? So she's going to grow, she's going to experience, she's going to have she has her own ideas, her own perceptions, and so the best, right? And then also learning that. So these are the facts. What I mean, let me address, like, here's what I want, but let me address the facts. Is she's going to grow up with her own mind, okay, and then she's going to learn from me. So as much as I can want to show her things, like, what the question is, like, what am I showing her now? And of course I want her to have a healthy marriage, partnership, relation. I want her to have healthy relationships. But I think what I'm demonstrating right now is a person who she likes playing with toys together. That's her favorite thing to do. And also I learned that you're their first playmate, like you're their first friend as their dad, right? I can think to 5 and think of who I was playing with, and right now I'm like, wow, I'm that friend, or that playmate who's like that partner that they're gonna feel and then kind of feel out in other people, right? And that can be healthy or toxic. So I don't, right, we've gone through a generation of people who have felt guilt from their parents. My parents want me to get married, right? So we've learned another thing, that like me wanting something for her, that might make her feel alienated. I want her to be healthy and things like that. But I'm saying, like, wanting a certain outcome for her, my worldview, I'm challenging whether I want to put that on her, right? So what I am, it's really boiling down to, how am I treating her now? How am I interacting with her? Because this is going to be the model for the partner that she like seeks out, and whether it's marriage, relationship, or whatever we have invented in the future when she grows up. So that's, and then what am I modeling for her? I don't have a partner right now, and I don't believe that's a priority. I'm not. That's and I don't know, Steve, what was your experience in being a father? 6 to 8 daughters. What would you say now? What would you say is the best way to go on that? Or is it good to have a woman in the home who's healthy, or is it better to go like solo and like just we have a parallel parenting? So the way that I get 50, I get some time here, my off time, I do work and get other things going. So, you know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you a story, and I think about this often. So my eldest daughter was about 6, and mom was gone. So I was home with the kids and playing with them, just kind of the same style that I sense that you do. And she had a bin or a small box full of Legos. She was being a little shit, a little pissy, whatever. She walked out and dumped them down the stairs.
Yeah.
So I grabbed her, brought her back, and I just swatted her butt and said, "No, you can't do that." And she looks up at me with big eyes. "Okay, Daddy." Oh, okay. That's putting a boundary. And okay, this man has a boundary. Yes, he loves me. It wasn't done out of anger. It was just like, here's the boundary.
Yeah. I
And
remember.
enforcing that in a woman to, okay, when you find the boundary, don't keep pushing and you are under the love and protection and authority of a man. That's actually, in most cases, a comforting position for a woman. And ask Elena if she agrees with me.
I completely agree with you. I remember my dad, and I also have a younger sister. He would use his belt, and like, yeah, he did do it like a few times with us, but every time like we were making him angry, or we didn't do something that we were not supposed to do, we didn't do something we were supposed to do, or other way around, he would just touch his belt, and then we would be, okay, Dad, I understand that. But it has to be done at the very early stage, when they can still when they are still scared of you, they view it as authority. Because once they grow up and there is this teenage puberty state when they go their way, and the fear doesn't work as much on kids versus the younger age. And ask me how I know, because I used to work with teenagers, and it's like you can fear them, they're not scared. If the discipline wasn't taught to them in the early stage, they're not going to care.
How skilled are young girls at manipulating men or their fathers to get what they want?
Oh yeah,
Daddy, can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then who's the boss? The daughter or the father? Is he saying no? Is he providing this boundary? Because if you don't provide that boundary and she doesn't learn this concept, man, in her teenage years, if she won't listen to you when she's 4, 5, 6, when she's 14, 16 years old, and her hormones start raging.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oh man. Right, Elena?
Yeah.
I agree 100% with you, Steve. Yeah, I remember even my dad, he told me when I was 14, but he could only do it because he already set up healthy boundaries, what was okay behavior and what wasn't. So when I was 14, we went on a trip with my classmates to St. Petersburg, because I'm originally from Russia. So we were visiting St. Petersburg and the neighborhood towns around it. And he told me, have fun, but don't you dare get pregnant. And I was like, Daddy, I'm not even, I was so embarrassed. I was like, turned red automatically, like, Dad, like, no, I'm telling you, don't you dare, and I still remember that. And I was so careful. Like, I wouldn't even like talk to guys. There were a lot of guys because it was a bunch of classmates, and then there were a few adults with us, so yeah. And then they were hanging out together. I would avoid all of the parties. I would avoid all of the temptations and stuff. And just because I was listening to my dad, I was trying to do what my dad told me to do,
So, Lydell, something you said, it just came back to me. You said you want your daughter to make her own decision.
Mm-hmm.
But then you said something about putting a burden on her. Man, what a burden that is when she reaches 16 to 18. You know how clueless young men are when they're 18.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have a clue. Women are even more clueless. And if you leave it up to them and you put the burden on them to decide what they're going to do, that's a heavy weight. And so you kind of have to guide them to where you want to go. Okay, so let's talk about the repressive life of Elena. I mean, just as a model, as a thought exercise. So she's in a higher, okay, I've only known her for 3 months, and she's young enough to be my daughter. So, okay, so I'll just say what I've observed about her, because I know, talked to her husband, Plutarch, and he's a bit older than her. He makes some money, and, it's his second marriage. None of this is private information. But, he's a successful guy. So when they got married, and I can tell from what Elena does, she does her dance videos and she does these kind of streams. She does piano practice. She doesn't make any money from this. She lives this life that, okay, he's the provider. I think they live in a decent size house and it's a good position. And she's obviously highly intelligent.
Aw.
But she doesn't have the burden and obligation, responsibility of going out to make money. She's doing her own thing, and she has the freedom to do that. The decision making in the house is primarily her husband,
Mhm.
and she doesn't always follow what he says, but then they talk about it and they resolve it. And so, okay, there's no partnership between the two of them. But she's a very pleasant woman, and it seems like a happy existence. And from my observation, these women who think they're going to be partners and they think, well, I'm going to have a career and all this. Okay. If she goes to college to broaden her horizons and options, it's not. It's doing the opposite because she took on debt. And now she's got to have a career and she's got to pay that back. And she's investing all these years of her fertility into her career. And then maybe when she's 30, well, then she'll, oh, gee, I should get married and have a kid. But she's got all this debt burden and obligations of life versus maybe getting a 2-year degree, focusing on finding a man, finding a marriage, kind of like what Elena has. Okay, they're just two different worldviews, and maybe you haven't thought about, balancing these two up.
What Nick is Nick a dad also? Does he have some way? Just curious as to way in.
Oh, he's got okay. 7 kids.
7.
Right, that's
and
right.
He's divorced, and this is his visitation weekend.
Okay, right.
So that's why he's not be able to
Yeah.
I
be
hear
in
you.
here
I
with us.
totally understand then. Yeah, this is my visitation weekend. I just using strategies. Let's see. I guess, I don't know. I'm not a long enough follower, Elena, of your content to know the dynamics of your relationship and that nature, so I, can't speak to that. But, I let me agree with you first. You're right. It shouldn't just be willy-nilly. Like I shouldn't have no goals for her, no kind of vision for her. And I'll back that with a factoid I learned like throughout all this process, growth process, or broken down process, getting beat down by life, right? They call it growth. But that women get a sense of their own vision for their life from their dad. Like their dad has a breath of life into them of what they're gonna be and stuff. So you inspire them and stuff. And again, don't get me choked up. Woo. But let me agree with you there. Like it shouldn't just be like let her be what she wants. I mean, right? Like again, there's wordings, and it may be that you're the type, and again, not an attack, but you clearly have shown a pattern of the definitions matter. I get it, but they're also like, there is a fine line. You do have to be so for all the viewers, we go back, right? There is a certain kind of assertive role that the dad needs to be in their daughter's life so that it gives them vision and like that direction. And that is studied and shown. And so, but what I mean by my, saying let her is that I can expose her to technologies and different things, creative arts, and just kind of observe, see what she picks up on, and then like encourage the growth in that area. I'm an educator also, so I kind of see how people think. I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying you guide her, and that's exactly right.
So I'm saying I agree with you. Probably agree with Nick too. I know he's got a dad weekend too, but let me go back to 2 scenarios and share how we were similar, but how I handled it different, and maybe I did do it wrong, and maybe there's a moment where I need
right or wrong. You're
right.
just here to think and learn and decide.
So 2 things happened today. One of them, right? I'm asking her to. I have a little iron, and it's a little, press, one of those old school press
Yeah.
irons. You put your pants in, you press them. So her little trousers go in there, press the whole thing in one.
Right.
And we might go out today, we might not. We were supposed to go to this event today. She said she didn't want to go. And normally I'm trained, right? You're not supposed to let them dictate the day and all that stuff. And right. So there was that little thought there, but we didn't go. I have this talk with you guys. I thought, okay, we're going to not go to that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It's my day today. It's my birthday. I get to decide, right? And so, so first instance, dealing with toddler, kind of agreeing where you're right. It was like, hey, I need your pants so I can press them, right? Like they're a little wrinkled up, and they looked okay for a toddler, right? It's fine. She can go out a little wrinkly pants, but I just kind of, there's a little boundary I have. I want to press your pants. Go ahead and take off your pants so I can press them. I don't want to. And I thought about it, and I thought about how I said it. Can you please? Okay, right. Not supposed to. Can you please? Because then, okay, then the opening, right? Okay, right. Okay. So mentally to myself, and I didn't react. So I went back in and I said, take off your pants so I can iron them. Something direct, right? But still fair and kind emotion, but like direct. And then boom, she. Oh, Dad. Okay. And did it. And I thought, okay, cool. Okay, cool. I got that. Okay. Let me tell you another moment. So in other words, I didn't have to use physical anything yet. I can use like strong, direct. I can use those techniques we learn as like, don't say it in a wishy-washy way and all those things we learn, right? So, okay, I did it, scored. Okay. Got the pants off. They're pressed. She comes in and helps me press it. It's a little too high, so she can't. Anyway, done. Okay, another manipulation. Someone mentioned how they manipulate. So I bought 2 kites. I have 2 kites right now today, 2 kites. I bought 2 just for the variety. I know she might like one. I might like the other, right? And I want to go fly kites with her, So I choose one as a little Delta Star. And then the other one's like a little bird, a little Tweety bird with arms. I thought she would like the Tweety bird, right? So I got that one. And then I got the Delta Star, so I showed her the kites, and she opens the Delta Star. She's playing with the Delta Star. She takes ownership of it. You know how the youngins do, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so the other one's unopened. Hey, Dad, you can have the Delta Star because I really want that one, but I'm going to give that to you because it's your birthday. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then she's like, I'll take the Tweety bird one. And I think she slipped and she said, I like the Tweety bird one and so, but I'm going to give you that one because, and I said, well, I kind of, that suspended disbelief. Well, but Dad actually wants the Tweety bird one though. Like that's the one he wants to choose on his birthday. So she had this idea of like, hey, I'll give you this one I opened. I really want the Tweety bird one, but let me like show this quality I've been learning that you taught me of like sharing. But she did it in a manipulative way when I really wanted the Tweety bird. That's one she wanted. So I instilled the idea of, well, it is my birthday. So it's not which one you give me, which one I can choose first. And she heard that and processed it. And I said, so that might mean I want the Tweety bird one. That's, and she processed it, and anyway, so yeah, they can manipulate. They do. And I'm like, wow, that was.
Well, they do, but that showed a lot of generosity on her part.
It showed a willingness, and it showed, hey, I'm not gonna fall for that though, too. Like, I know you want the Tweety, but I got the Tweety bird for you anyway, but you don't know that yet, and that, and that's so that's how I've dealt with it. And is that wrong? I don't know. I grew up in the hitting household, and I grew up in the physical, how dominant. We've gone through a moment of physical understanding that physical extremes, and I got my butt whipped, right? Like I'm in that generation too, so. Is that necessary?
You can go to the extreme punishment, which is bad.
We're not talking about that.
You can go to the extreme niceness and being wishy-washy, which is bad.
That's bad.
And
that's bad.
Both of them are maybe equally bad.
Yeah.
So
right. So what should we do?
A little bit of physical is not the end of the world.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not advocating child abuse at all.
I understand what you're saying. The little shock to the system.
That swat on the butt. Like,
no,
That's
person
not
too.
allowed. Okay, that's not a
They all have
spanking.
to have
It's
that
like,
experience between
wake
0 through
up.
5 years old. It's
Yes.
basically what you're saying. Like shock their system in some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, hey, or whatever, I don't know, in a healthy way while I have the chance. Got it.
And think
Yeah.
about this. Sometimes, like when you explained yourself to your daughter about I need your pants. You gave her the option. Well, now she has to think about it. And then, no, you told her what to do, but then you told her the reason. So now you have to justify what you're doing. That makes mental process. And so you're actually putting a burden on her. If simple things, innocent things like that, take off your pants, I'm going to press them. Don't give her an option. She doesn't have to think. You're not creating that mental burden. And she says, oh, okay. And then there's no conflict. And then this thing about letting a woman choose. Man, hey, Elena, do women like to make choices and decisions?
No.
Okay, we're gonna go out hey honey, we're gonna go out to eat. We can go to a fancy place, we can go to the Italian place. I've been wanting to try out that Chinese place. How about Greek food? What do you want to do? Oh, I don't know.
That's exactly the reaction
she
I would
just
have.
hates that.
Yeah.
She's thinking in her mind, would you just take charge? I don't want to make this decision.
Yeah.
So you just say, okay, hey, get ready. We're going out. We're going to have Greek gyros tonight. Oh, okay. Or then once you've said that in an authoritative way, then she can say, well, no, I don't really feel like that. I'd rather go to Chinese. Okay. That's kind of a natural thing. You didn't force it on her. Then you say, oh, okay, I'm fine with Chinese. You're not being a dictator. You're being authoritative, not authoritarian. You're being dominant, not domineering.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Elena, what do you think what I said?
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I can't decide what I want to eat. My husband usually tells me what I'm eating. If we are in a restaurant, I usually give him the menu. I don't even look at it. He asks me, like, what do you feel like? I'm like, well, maybe fish, maybe. I give him some hints because I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole menu and decide for myself. I have my husband. He can pick for me, and he usually, so far, he's been picking pretty well.
Does that make life easier for you?
Yes, not taking decisions, especially the important decision. This is what I was trying to tell to Eamma. You have a man. A man is supposed to decide, right? He's supposed to tell you what you are going to wear, what so that you just do it.
Hey guys, I got a few things to say. So, it says,
great.
so when dealing with wife and authority, it says not to be bitter to them, not to deal with them with knowledge, with understanding, to deal with them also in consideration of their co-heirs of you with grace, of eternal life through faith in Jesus Christ. And that's 1 Peter chapter 3, but also Ephesians talks about, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in instruction and fear and admonition in the Lord. So, you're supposed to instruct them, you're to disciple them, you're to discipline them, but not to be so overbearing that you're that authoritarian. Yeah, you're authoritative, you're in authority and exercise it properly. Right. You don't spare the rod and spoil the child, but it doesn't mean you're always necessarily spanking them, or you don't need to spank them too harshly. And I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm learning from you guys on that too, so yeah, changing worldviews. I would hear, Elena, you were saying you agree that assertiveness or that without being domineering, you agree also with their feeling on that.
On assertiveness in men.
Yeah. Do you value? It sounds like you value. I mean, I'm sure, right? It sounds like you're a set of wives who would prefer, say, that their man, say, choose certain decisions, things like that. Did you guys ever like food, like he orders for you? You said you like when he does that. Have there ever been a sense where there was that there was something you kind of wanted but didn't get? I don't know. Has that always worked for you
Oh,
authentically?
women. How do I put it so that I don't piss off too many women here?
Yeah.
Women should be okay to hear no from their husbands. So no, I don't get everything 100% of what I want and expect in the relationship. Otherwise, it would be too easy for me. I have to work. I have to earn. If I want something, I have to behave. I have to prove myself to my husband. Then one day maybe I get it. Maybe I will change my mind. It's like at some point, like sometimes I come up with some crazy ideas and then I run them by my
Really?
husband. Oh,
Wow.
yes. He didn't tell you? I'm surprised you didn't hear
I
from.
know that. Just look at some of her videos. Crazy ideas. Yeah,
I know.
right there.
So yeah, I sometimes have. I don't put everything out there, guys. I actually censor, but I run a few ideas by my husband, and then he's like, "No," and I'm like, "Why?" But then I do realize like no is no, and then over time I just kind of like maybe like he's right. He's right so many times. Like in most cases, he like he can see the future. He can see what's coming. He's way more intelligent than I am, and I should listen to him. And usually, every time I listen to him, my life turns out much better than when I just say like, no. Sometimes I don't listen. I do my way, and then I suffer because I messed up. I did something that I wasn't supposed to do.
Well, if you do it your way, he probably lets you take responsibility for
Yes.
what happens.
Oh yes.
If you do it his way and it turns out bad, well, he's responsible.
Yeah.
And you can just say, well, I did it your way. Now you have to fix it.
Right.
So, it kind of makes things a lot easier for women if they learn they don't have to be a man. They don't have to make decisions like the man. They don't have to pay equally for everything. He's going to make the decisions. They learn that hierarchy because you know what? Two things women want: love and security. So, and women generally lie about three things: infidelity, promiscuity, and abortion. And all three of them relate to reproduction. And they feel guilt. And if he knew what, that I stepped out on him, I'd be shamed. I feel guilty about that. If he knew my real body count, or the society did, I would be shamed. And I feel guilty about it. They knew that I aborted a child. Oh, man, I feel guilty about that. So they fear the guilt, and it's always there under the surface. So if I told anybody, they wouldn't love me. Therefore, I have to lie and pretend to be someone else. Therefore, I have to wear a mask so I can get love. But then, if you love them for the mask, you're not loving the real person. And so she's depriving herself of love. And so a woman will gladly give up her authority if she's loved and she wants to be secure. She wants that man to be stronger than her. She wants him to be able to push her up against the wall and take care of her, because if he can't do that, he can't protect her from the world. Not that she wants him to do that. She wants him to have the capability of just dominating her. Because if he can't handle her, he can't handle the monsters in the world. Okay. And it takes a while to actually process through this and say, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Even for a man trying to figure out a woman, it takes a lot of mental processing. Anything you would disagree with there, Elena?
No, I would just add to your point that even if you raise your daughter like the right way, there is social influence. If she is exposed to her friends in school, in college, there are so many broken institutions that would kind of try to instill the idea of feminism and independence, be strong, powerful, like men. So even if she is raised in a traditional setting, let's say, it will be very, very hard for her to resist it, And this is where your role as a father, I would agree with Steve, is crucial because uh, um, I think it would be helpful for her if she had the guidance, if she had your support, but with correction also, like Steve was mentioning. So if she messes up, she is accountable for her own stupid decisions, for her own stupid choices, and so that she turns out to be a valuable member of society, not some entitled boss babe out there.
When she screws up, you still love her. You don't punish her. You don't. Okay, discipline is one thing. Punishment is another. Mm-hmm. When she screws up, you don't do undue punishment and make her feel that she has to measure up to get your love. Your love is constant, but you still will have authority and discipline. That's a completely different thing than love. The love is constant. And yeah, you can get upset once in a while. Nobody's perfect. But Lydell, I'm glad you came on here today. Mm-hmm. I can see that we kind of challenged you to think about things. And hey, I'm glad to give you that gift. I think your heart is in the right place.
It's a great gift on a birthday.
Talking to you in the future if you want to talk to us again.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate, I understand, Elena, your channel, starting up. We're all startups at some point, right? We're at the point where we or at least I'm new to it. I should say that it starts showing up in my feed so it looks new. But yeah, thank you guys for having this conversation. I think if anything, takeaways, what I'm affirmed in is that, I agree with you, Steve. Maybe there's a generation of women who can't hear no, and they react, and it's like a wild reaction, right? And there's a generation that's been a generational thing we're coming out of, right? Right. And so, you're right. I mean, being able to accept a no is it's so important. It is. It really is. So I'm just taking that away with affirmation. I'm also taking away that there is that role for that alpha male who we see, not the bossy club man, but no, hey, this is the way it's happening. And that, and there's no question, right? There's the role for that. I'm hearing, Elena, it's refreshing to hear in your case, how it's refreshing, that you have such trust in your husband to guide and make the right decisions. And then, right. That's refreshing. That's what we as men do want. We want that real belief in that we're going to guide things, even when they're messed up or whatever. But I also am aware there's a population of women who were burned by following the wrong guys, and they're like, hell with that.
This is why
I get it, right?
This is why your guidance is so important. Hold on, Steve, 1 second. I just wanted to point out here that you as a father, I'll speak from my experience, what my father did to me. I introduced him to one of my friends. We were not even dating. We didn't have a kiss. It was just one of the guys, we talked and we met a few times. So I introduced him to my dad, and my dad did not like this guy. And I was sitting across the table. So my mom was sitting across me and my dad. I was sitting next to my dad. And I was watching this guy boiling because my dad was asking him some very interesting questions that I wouldn't have thought of asking him myself. This is why girls need their father's guidance, and their fathers are supposed to traditionally vet the boyfriends and the husbands. This is why it's important for girls not just to my heart, my feels before reels. I fall for this man and he's in prison or somewhere, or he's a drug dealer, but I love him so much. No, you're supposed to introduce him to your father so that he can pre-select him for you, because that's usually, right? They wish what's the best for their daughters. And my
You said
dad,
women.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said women are screwed up by following the wrong man or a bad man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. More women are screwed up by not having a father in their lives, or not having a father that is setting down boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and guiding like Elena's father. So,
yeah, you're right. I think you're right about that. Right.
You know what? Stop being I'm kind of saying this to you, but I'm saying this to all men, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying it to me at a young age. Stop being a nice guy and just be a good man. Stop being nice. Nice is not a virtue.
Yeah.
Just be a good man, because when you're good, that means yes and no and boundaries. When you're nice, you're always trying to please somebody by doing what they want. Stop being nice. Just be good.
Yeah, and also women don't respect the nice guys. Lidl. They say on social media or everywhere on other podcasts, you will see how they want this. They say that they want this equal partner. They want this guy who cries and is vulnerable. And what else is there? He's emotionally available for you. He's the woman pleaser, right? He does what she tells him to do. But deep inside their DNA, it just contradicts all of the feminist BS propaganda, because all of these beliefs, they were installed upon us, and we have multiple generations of people living and believing this stuff, so it's going to take a long time to undo this damage. And we need more dads who are more involved with their kids and who guide and correct their children, because this is what needs to happen for us to go back to, somewhat traditional. I don't think we will be able to go back completely, but at least try, so that our kids have better life.
This is great. I mean, from my perception, I might give off a certain vibe. I obviously, you guys perceive me a certain way, but in my mind, I agree with what you guys are saying, and I'd be happy to like pounce on those ideas. I mean, you're right. There is a wave of toxic moms and women. I'll go there with you, right? And I've gone through that experience. I'm here now, and I have time with our daughter, but it was a challenge, and I got to see those and experience that and reflect back to my childhood and all that what beat down growth happened. So I because I agree with you. I hear your points, Elena. I hear your point, Steve. I understand you. We're a generation of where you're like, you're my senior, where I can learn something from you, but I hear where you're coming from. And then I know Nick has Dad Weekend, but I can hear him, speaking. He's met Christ, and you have to go through some hard times to get to that point. So I acknowledge that in you guys, and I feel like kinship. I know I give off a progressive dad vibe, but I'm learning that these male alpha qualities are very important in the development of our children, our daughters. So.
You obviously care for your daughter and love her very much. And you're spending a lot of time researching and trying to find out the right thing to do. Man, just relax.
Yeah. Thanks.
Just stop.
Yeah, right. You're saying
just be a good man.
That's right. Good, yeah.
And provide boundaries. And you know what? You'll be fine, because for generations upon generations, that's all men did. And they raised better kids than we have now.
Mhm.
All this books and progressive bullshit.
Yeah,
Actually, a lot of it's from the progressive side.
it
And,
is. It is.
you know, and we're not into politics here. You know, just be the good man
There you
and
go.
just be firm and be loving.
Be loving and firm. That's right.
Yeah, and maintain your masculine frame. This is what women really love and
Mhm.
appreciate. Even your daughter, she would love and respect you if you were a strong, rational, masculine man.
Right.
And then she will try to find herself a similar man like you, because if you role model for her being I'm not talking about you here, but
Right,
I see
right.
a lot of that's like who are like simpy, you know, yes, you are my princess, you get what you want, you
Right.
know, here I'm going to pick up the peanuts out of your poop just to see where it came from. This is from the book by Api Thor, A Dominant Masculine Presence. I highly recommend you to read this book, guys, if you haven't read it already. Yeah, women love strong, rational, masculine men. They tell to themselves, because they were taught for multiple generations that they were supposed to want the weak man, the simpy man, the man who would pedestalize them, the man who would pick up the peanuts out of their poop, these kinds of men. But biologically, they are disgusted by these men. They will use them. They will pimp this man for clout, for money, to get more independence, but they will completely disregard this man. They will replace them with stronger, better, more rational and masculine men. So for your daughter, the best you can do is be that strong, rational, masculine man yourself, and then she will want to find the man who is like you, just younger version of you, really.
That's beautiful. You know, it's amazing that that quality at our childhood, meaning we're attracted to people like our parents, is
Mhm.
like society's worst kryptonite, but also our most important one where we can actually make change. You know, like it's our
Mhm.
kryptonite. In other words,
Yeah.
you get stuck with the toxic parent, man, you're going to go on a ride and you're going to, you know, you're going to meet
Well,
that
you're going to
same
seek,
person. And
you seek familiarity.
right, right.
And so you will seek to kind of unconsciously, you're going to recreate that childhood similarity, similar environment, because it's familiar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You weren't happy, but it's familiar.
Right, right. So so I enjoyed this talk. Thank you guys for
Yeah, thank
holding
you.
this, and yeah, this is cool.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Lida.
call in again. We would love to
I
talk to you
enjoyed this.
again. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Call in anytime. We have the call-in sessions, okay, guys? Remember to leave us comments. Please follow us on The Resurgence, our new YouTube channel. And thank you guys for showing up, for your comments. Thank you for your kind support. I'm going to take us out here.
Okay.